Meanwhile, we see that Gorok has safely landed in some tribal village, and quickly overthrows its leaders and claims power for himself. But because an island paradise littered with scantily clad women who only want to do your bidding isn't enough for some people, Gorok gets restless and decides to, you guessed it, take over the world.
Of course.
Bring me to the nearest seaport, and be quick about it. Yeah, because these people really look like they have a seaport. And you can still use your undamaged flying harness, right? With my new super strength, nothing can stop me. I'll turn this whole world into Gorok's empire of slaves. And since we never saw Saldin exposit that being on Earth has somehow made him invulnerable, we can only deduce from this that the mighty Gorok can be easily defeated by a pointy stick. Back with Saldin, who's on the hunt for a job. Naturally, his first place to look is a circus, because it's comic books. You can't swing a dead cat around without hitting a circus. The owners need to shut down their entire show because of their injured trapeze artist. Interesting business practice, if a little stupid. But Saldin volunteers to fill in for him. Not quite sure that enhanced strength also means an enhanced sense of balance, but whatever. We'd show you more of his act, but knowing how hip our readers are, we figure you get the idea. A comic book published in 2001 just referred to its own readers as hip. I'd make a joke, but that's already funny enough by itself. The owner of the circus gives Saldin his cut and... Oh, for God's sakes, could you smile, please? You just got a fistful of cash for doing very little work, you saved a bunch of starving artists from canceling their show, and yet you're still scowling like you've done through the entire comic? I've already made too many allusions to you looking like a pissed-off Nazi as it is. Lighten up! The owner says that he'll rework the entire show around Saldin and make him the star. Forget it. That's kid stuff. I just needed a stake to tide me over. There's something more important I've got to do. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen. After you pay him for helping you out, he'll insult you for doing so, and then leave you in the exact same predicament that you were in before he arrived. So after one night of work as a trapeze artist, Saldin now has enough money to rent a fully furnished apartment, buy a computer, and a TV. Good lord, not even the guys at Cirque du Soleil make that much. And this is happening later, with an asterisk attached. My favorite kind of caption. Doesn't require much effort to think it up. Energy saving Stan. And yet you spent that much energy on a joke that probably could have benefited from a bit more effort. He quickly learns that humanity's space travel technology is only in its infancy, and figures that if he fought crime and tried to abolish war, then they'd have the trillions of dollars necessary to increase their space research. Superman! Fighting for truth, justice, and serving his own interests! And come on, didn't this guy see Superman 4? You can't abolish war since the people of the world just don't want it enough. He finds some old comic books that the previous tenant left behind, and he quickly learns that all superheroes keep their identity a secret for the sake of avoiding the press. Which is a complete load, since the press hounding them is usually the last thing that most superheroes tend to worry about. Meanwhile, Gorok has made it to Los Angeles, where he's accosted by an elderly couple from a church who say that the Reverend Dominic Dark has been expecting him. Gee, I wonder if this religious authority figure with the word dark in his name will be the villain. He meets Reverend Dark inside, and a quick magic demonstration makes Gorok agree to do his bidding. They walk through a portal which closes behind them, and... oh my. You guys are seeing this too, right? I wonder how this was described in Stan Lee's script. The magic portal closes behind them, looking like a lady's cigar box. Trust me, it'll make the comic look all deep and Freudian. We jump back to Saldin, who then gets an unexpected visitor. Lois Lane, who in this comic is an agent who promises that she can make him rich and famous. Yeah, that whole keeping your secret identity a secret thing is really working well, since any schmuck can track you down almost immediately. He agrees to let her represent him, since doing so might make him an easier target for Gorok. Conveniently, a newsflash announces that the president of China has just been kidnapped by terrorists, and Saldin decides that he needs to save him. Not because he's afraid of China and the US going to war over this and causing pointless death and destruction, but because said war would only further impede their space travel technology. How heroic. He flies off to deal with the terrorists, and Lois can't help but marvel at such a sight. Amazing. Those jets of his don't make the slightest sound. How is that possible? A perfectly fair question, yes, but I have a better one. how was Saladin flying around when his flying harness was broken? We then cut to the Pentagon, where the leaders of the greatest military on the planet are confused about how they can find the terrorists, despite them already having a designated drop-off location for the terrorists' ransom. Saladin shows up and says he has a plan, and it sure was lucky that the terrorists just happened to demand that their ransom be packed in such a way that's just begging for someone to be hiding inside it. I honestly can't tell which is the dumber party here. Anyway, the helicopter uses a laser beam to open a hole in the ground. Of course lasers can do that! And Saladin goes down a tunnel where he meets Gorak waiting for him. And because it's a Superman comic, Lois is naturally one of the hostages too. How? Why? Because, damn it! They tie up Saladin instead of just shooting him in the face, and this of course results in a splash page of Saladin bursting out of his chains, finally giving us our first real Superman imagery. First your wife, and now you. At last I have my full revenge for the years you made me spend in prison. You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have reminded me of Lyella. Now nothing in the cosmos can stop me. Nothing! 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 It's the third nothing that really sells this. If it were only two nothings, I wouldn't believe that he's especially determined. He quickly deals with Gorak and the other terrorists, none of whom are remembering how guns work apparently, and he breaks Lois free of her own chains and they make a break for it. It doesn't take them long to find a way out, which is just through a manhole. Weren't they miles deep a minute ago? And by the way, Saladin here shows no interest in where this errant manhole lid might land, despite the presence of several innocent bystanders. He flies back down to deal with Gorak for good, and Gorak says that instead of shooting Saladin right then and there, he wants to give his men the chance to beat him up first. Why? Because he's a comic book villain, and that's what they do, apparently. So, yeah, that goes as well as can be expected, but then Gorak busts out a bazooka from, I don't know, his back pocket maybe? And he causes a cave-in that traps him, but Saladin escapes easily with his broken flying harness. But there still remains the problem of the missing Chinese president. When I asked where to find his hostage, Gorak said, "Only time will tell." He notices a clock tower, where we see the Chinese president tied up to it and rigged to explode. Okay, seriously? No one saw Gorak and the other terrorists putting him up there? Again, this comic was published in November of 2001. People living in big cities like this are going to be a little bit more inclined to look up in the sky these days to see if any weird crap like this is going on. Saladin leaps up, unties the president, and throws the bomb into the air seconds before it explodes. No lettered sound effect could do justice to this explosion, so we didn't bother. Scrupulous Stan. Oh, for God. Stanley, stop with the fourth wall breaking. You're not being funny, you're being annoying. So the president is safe, but the aversion of war isn't enough to keep Saladin from being a super sourpuss. He's worried that Gorak is still alive somehow, and he can't just go back and look for his body because... And he's curious about how Gorak got situated with the terrorists in the first place. Maybe you shouldn't have let them die in the cave-in too, genius. While he's pondering this, we see that he passes the church where Gorak met Reverend Darrarararararararark. The end? Yeah, right. So that was Stan Lee's Superman, and boy is it a piece of work. I'm sure that Stan's heart was in the right place, but as a tribute to Superman, this just fails. Hard. Superman helps anyone and everyone for no other reason than because he can. But Saladin here only does what he does for his own selfish ends. Superman sees the potential good in everyone, but Saladin has nothing but disdain for everyone, even those who only want to give him a paycheck. Superman is supposed to be a symbol of hope, and I just can't see anyone being inspired by this guy. As good as Man of Steel will probably be, there's still a lingering fear among many that it's going to be a letdown for whatever reason. Well, I can honestly say that no matter how bad it turns out to be, it's not going to get worse than this. See you later.